Here we go. Good afternoon, everyone. It's Phil Richardson speaking. I'm the CEO of Black Opal Property Advisors, Inc. We're based in Phoenix, Arizona, as well as Toronto, Canada. And as you probably have seen from the material we put out and perhaps past recordings, we specialize in the development of mixed-use projects. Today, there have been many challenges on account of CV-19 for everyone in the property business, but more particularly for the shopping center business. There has been a drastic impact on account of the fact that their tenants have been closed, unable in many cases to pay rent, and as a result, the model that has already been under challenge over the last 20 years through online shopping is even more so today. And what that calls out for are solutions that may have only a year ago seemed to be kind of radical or expensive, but today are really important for us to consider. So as a result of that, we have gathered together our subject matter experts under the Black Opal umbrella. And what we want to do is we want to share with you various opportunities that we see coming along that should be considered if you happen to be especially a retail developer owning a shopping center and you would like to expand your opportunities for earning income, stabilize income, diversify it. So there are a variety of opportunities. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk with Kelly Lawton of Top Cats Realty and also with Raman Khanna, who you will see both on your screens here. And welcome, Kelly. Welcome, Raman. Thank you very much for joining us. I'll give a brief introduction. Kelly is a person who I've known for a long time, and she is someone who comes from the same area of Canada that I do. So we have a lot in common. So does Jerry, for that matter. But that's Northern Ontario. But what happens is that Kelly's career path has taken her many places, and she's represented both tenants and landlords in securing the right deals for shopping centers, and by and large, although some freestanding as well. So Kelly, I'll just skip to Raman, then I'll come right back to you. Raman Khanna is a gentleman who I've known for a number of years. He and I worked together in Abu Dhabi on the Yas Island project, a small $40 billion project that we participated in. And Raman's specialty was the development of hospitality and food and beverage offerings, and particularly with a 7-star hotel called the Yas Marina Hotel. And he was responsible for much of what was done, and furthermore, went on to also add other hospitality options to the island. So we've had a lot of experience together, the three of us, and now they're both back in North America, and I'm back too. And they have much to offer us with the responses that they've developed for the current situation. So I'd like to come back to Kelly. And Kelly, would you like to just talk a little bit about what you're doing and how you are conducting your business today?
Well, thank you, Phil. Thanks for that opportunity. Jerry and I, and I'm really glad that Jerry's with us today too, because he can chime in. We have a client who is really well positioned for COVID-19, but it's interesting because they've actually been around for 2 years. They've got 15 locations open and operating. Basically, the concept is called Ghost Kitchens. That is their brand, and they're expanding in Canada and soon in the United States as well. And the concept is basically a restaurant without table service. So they have a large variety of brands with which they have contractual agreements, like Cheesecake Factory and Cinnabon and Quiznos, and there's about 20 different brands now. It includes beverages too, like Jamba Juice and Nescafe, and alcoholic beverages, and just a really great selection of foods and beverages that can be ordered from one menu, an app actually called Ghost Kitchens. and the convenience is tremendous. They're now the number one. They've got the highest number of orders with Uber Eats. Is it Uber Eats? I think so. Yeah, with Uber Eats. But they also deal with Skip the Dishes and what's the other one? DoorDash. So it's tremendously convenient for people, whether they're at home or at the office or in a hotel, to be able to order the wonderful variety of well-known branded foods and beverages that will be delivered very quickly, just upon making that order online and paying online as well. So we're very busy right now, fortunately, expanding this group. They have a 3,000 square foot concept that takes up about a 4-kilometer radius. But within that 4-kilometer radius, they're also going to be doing 1,000 square foot satellites where it's mostly walk up. So there's no need for, the ability to drive or park or, pardon me, any of that. So it's fits in all sorts of environments, and it's really doing well. And there's a lot of people wanting to buy a territory now, and so they're selling territories in Canada, United States. So lots of revenue coming in for that, as well as new stores opening and new revenues coming in and new brands coming on board. So it's very exciting.
Thank you for that, Kelly. Well, that's a very interesting aspect. That's one of a number that you're involved in, and
yes,
I think what's really interesting is that a lot of developers today, shopping center owners, realize how critical the need is for solutions as soon as possible, and by that I mean new revenues to replace those that they're missing on account of vacancies, tenants not paying, what we call invisible vacancies. And they need to have their lifeblood restored, which of course is the cash flow that they gain from the property. And one of the solutions that we've devised is a scheme by which, from a strategy standpoint, we have short, medium, and long-term solutions. So as an example, ghost kitchens fit into the short-term solution, where probably within 60 to 90 days, the facility can be cash flowing depending on the level of fit out that might be required. And so do you want to talk a little bit about those options, such as including food courts and so on, Kelly?
Well, thank you, Phil. Pardon me, that company, Ghost Kitchens, can be up and running very quickly. They don't even require an exhaust hood. They have this very high-tech oven that has a built-in ecologizer. It's called a Rationale. It's expensive, but it's very, very smart oven. Wonderful. Yeah, Robin is aware of it. So yes.
Well, let's put it this way: it's the Rolls Royce of the ovens.
Right on. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Anyway, so that's one thing. Another thing that is really coming together. It's a slow process because requires a lot of people being able to, pardon me, make decisions. Medical centers now in province of Ontario in Canada right now, and I think it's happening elsewhere as well, is that the funding model is changing for doctors, and so what is happening is we're working with a company that puts together groups of medical doctors, and they hook them up with a pharmacy. So the pharmacy is part of it, and then a bunch of other health-related uses like a physiotherapist or a chiropractor or any number of health-related uses that can be complementary to the medical doctors, and then they share of their costs. So all of a sudden they're sharing a waiting area, administrative costs, administrative assistance, cleaning, all the things that a doctor's office would normally have to pay on their own. So it's making the concept more efficient and allowing us to roll out into more consumer-oriented locations. So we're putting them in grocery-anchored strip malls and places where they're, you know, it's easy. You drive your car up, you walk into the clinic, and it's all there. We even have dentists in some cases, so it's super convenient for people, especially, you know, moms with children, or someone bringing an elderly person as well for an appointment. It's just about that ease of getting in and out and the convenience. So that's another really helpful use, and that fits within the service category. Now, when we were talking about, you know, 90 days, 180 days, and then it's really more like marketing, you know, about if you think about what we used to do in order to generate percentage rent in shopping centers, I don't see it happening anymore. Maybe because the marketing funds have dried up, I don't know. But there are so many things that we as shopping center operators can do to create events in shopping centers, to bring people back to the shopping centers and help those groups. The last time we talked about antique cars, but I mean, pick a group. There's like, you know, 1,000, 2,000 different ideas, and we've done them because we filled our shopping centers up with groups of people that wanted to promote whatever they were. So we were talking about antique cars. So the antique car people, they want to expand their membership. So they fill up the shopping center with cars. So now you've got an event to attract people that may not have come to the mall in a year or two. So now all of a sudden they've got a reason to come back to the shopping center. And if you've actually got some retailers, they're going to benefit. But if you don't have any retailers left, you don't have any tenants left, put the car people in there. Let them promote themselves for a week or a month or whatever. You know, like, get creative. That's just one idea. Think about all the groups that are out there that are looking for a way to reach out to people on a personal level, because that's what we in shopping centers offer. You know, bodies walking through. And if you don't have bodies walking through, figure out a way to get them. Draw people in. And it's a building block. Yes, it's work. Yes, it requires, you know, constant, you know, you get to step one, then step two, and it requires consistent focus. But it's not rocket science.
I agree with you on that, and thanks for bringing that part of the operation up as well. First of all, what kind of area range would the ghost kitchen take within a shopping center? How big would that unit be?
We haven't gone inside enclosed malls that I'm aware of. I don't know where all so Jerry's shaking his head. So a 3,000 to 3,500 square feet is even on the large side. They can be smaller. They can be 2,500 square feet, 2,000 to 2,500 square feet. And ideally, they have access to a place where a car can drive up. So right. A couple of parking spaces where the Uber Eats and the DoorDash guys can drive up, run in, grab the order, and run back out, jump in the car, and they're gone. But it's also convenient for walk up. So if you've got any pedestrian traffic, if you've got a good, visible, convenient location, so all the usual stuff in retail, we want all that. We want exposure, access, egress to parking, visibility, signage, you know, and then sure. Access to receiving and garbage, etc. Just like
so despite the fact that, you know, most enclosed malls don't have that exterior exposure, most do in some units. So therefore, what you've described would is readily fit into an enclosed mall from a functionality standpoint, given all the attributes that you'd like to have. So it could fit into an enclosed mall as well as a strip center. The cost structure might be different, and therefore that would have to be a point of discussion, obviously, with the owner. I've unmuted Jerry just to allow him to contribute rather than do it by sign language. Gary, sorry, I muted you.
They told me about enclosed centers. We could build a food court in the enclosed center. They have 15 to 20 to 25 varieties. Now, you know, that's a whole different game that we're talking to. You could get a landlord. I can't see them biting on that, to be honest with you.
Well, you know, I hear you, but you know something, it's the old adage, you don't get if you don't ask. And in today's society, you know, things are so disrupted that there's no predicting exactly how any one given landlord might react. So I think it's incumbent on us to at least make the suggestion and see whether they like that idea or not. in terms of, oh, sorry, go ahead, Raman. Were you going to say
So I
something?
wanted to say that, you know, when it comes to ghost kitchens, there are two models. One that Kelly is describing, and then you have the, you know, because they have taken literally the word ghost kitchen and branded it. But when you look at the definition of ghost kitchens, means that you don't have, you know, these are the kitchens that can be anywhere because you don't have any service areas. When I say service areas, means you don't have any guests with table, chairs, and, you know, that service with a waiter or waitresses serving them. So, you know, what Kelly is talking about, these are easily prepared food, but at the same time, there is a big push on some of these kitchens now, which depend only on delivery. So they do produce complex items and complex dishes. So that's you know, that's a second model as well.
And I
That's
think there's a hybrid that that's evolving too. And we've speculated about this amongst ourselves. And that is in the event that, let's say, a landlord might have a vacant or nearly vacant food court, you know, which is all set up basically for complex food preparation. You know, all the ventilation, the hoods, and everything are in place, fire protection, and so on. If the landlord had the opportunity to recycle that into a single ownership that might offer a variety of different cuisines, they're prepared to do that, then, you know, you could imagine how that food court could then be activated by also putting the seating area of the food court into a different purpose. Namely, that would be where people would queue to pick up. And as well, and going on what Kelly was talking about, I mean, I'm an old school shopping center operator too. And so what we would do is we would find events, either, you know, transient part-time events or full-time, such as a farmer's market that might be there, where people who are dwelling are waiting for their food. They might pick something up, and so on. So there's a lot that can be exercised insofar as imagination goes. Kelly and I were just talking this morning about a project that we know of where there's only a few operators left in operation in the food court, and we think that, you know, that is an example of what we're talking about, that a landlord could be persuaded to do that. So, you know, there's you know, a lot of whether it takes 30, 60, or 90 days. What happens is all of a sudden the landlord has a six-figure income that plugs a hole in the ship, and you know, it's a good building block. Go ahead.
I wanted to say that here isn't a good opportunity, especially when we talk about short term, that if landlords and the tenants can come to an agreement that they can do revenue share.
Yeah.
You know, this way, everybody it's a win-win for everybody. The tenants, you know, the food producers, they are in business, and they want to stay in business. You know, they don't want to, you know, have to come back and then start again. So I think that will be a good idea if the landlords and the tenants can agree on revenue share as form of, rather than going for a traditional rent.
Sure. So, you know, what that really underscores is that there's a different varieties of solution, and but all of them have the charm of potentially lending significant new revenue and a more resilient and more robust revenue to that shopping center's you know, overall net income. And you know, the other applications, such as the medical center that Kelly's talking about, the attraction of rent for temporary occupancy for the use of mall space, all of those add up to a fairly quick solution of a part of the puzzle for the owner. Let's talk a little bit about the longer term implications. Say you've got a department store that does require some significant work to refit. And Kelly participated with Jerry in this in the form of a Target store that was recycled for a large developer. And she's described this before, but it's worth another go. Kelly, why don't you talk a little bit about your experience and how long it took approximately to recycle that Target store?
Well, I have to give Jerry. Jerry was the one that actually identified the opportunity, and our client went for it. And you know, I have to give them a lot of credit for having the vision, because the space that was available was a former Target, 157,000 square feet, and pardon me,
Good on you, Jerry.
absolutely. And they had the vision to be able to see that there was an opportunity for them, but not only for their usual concept, which was a fabulous multi-ethnic grocery store, but then they saw the opportunity to expand into entertainment use, to add an entertainment use to the grocery store. So it increased the traffic to the grocery store. And then what do you do with the additional space? Well, they realized that there was an opportunity for them to, because they do attract a lot of traffic, for them to be able to sublease the remainder of the space. So the grocery store itself and the 15,000 square feet that's known as Happy Kingdom and Nations Fresh Foods is a little shy of 100,000, and then remainder is about 45,000 square feet of other uses that include real destination community oriented stuff like an Olympics level gymnastics club, a children's dance school that's been in the neighborhood for 2 decades, a 9,500 square foot medical center similar to the one that I just described, and then various other uses that are easy to do, like a nail salon, a hair salon, all those, a dentist, all those kinds of uses, and some food as well. So it came together reasonably well, and it's a wonderful anchor for a shopping center that was really hurting.
How long did it take?
Tell him where Frank got the idea from when he took us to Buffalo.
So there's a wonderful grocery store chain in New York called Wegmans. Some people are familiar. Yeah, Wegmans has been really doing well for many years. They have a wonderful level. They've got more than one level of preparation of foods for take home. They've got foods that are prepared, and you just buy them from the hot table and you take them home and eat them. And they've also got semi-prepared foods. So they've got the kit, the meal kit. So all the veggies are.
We talked about that in our previous podcast about the meal kits, which was one of my suggestions for the restaurants and the grocery stores too.
Yeah.
Well, I think everybody accepts the fact that a supermarket is one of the most durable forms of retail that exists, and a lot of people are very attracted to anchor stores such as supermarkets anchoring an entire shopping center for the very reason that they have a very sustainable business. And of course, there are better examples such as Wegmans, such as Nations, and so on that it really exemplify this. But what's interesting is that once again. And I'm speculating, I'm not asking you to tell us, Jerry or Kelly, but I'm speculating that Target probably negotiated a $5, $6, $7 per square foot deal in their on a net basis in their premises, but it exempted them from, let's say, internal common area contribution. It exempted them from various other things that they might have agreed with the landlord. Whereas the replacement, by these other elements, it's more likely that their business model allows them to pay more basic rent and perhaps participate more in some of the occupancy costs of the shopping center. So, the landlord is looking at this example that you're talking about and saying, I had this deal with Target, they've gone away. I've got this deal with a very good, supermarket that's going to attract a lot of traffic, maybe as much as Target might have, and I've got a superior financial deal. So, it's very inspirational when you hear these stories as an owner or landlord says, gee, how am I going to plug the holes in my vessel? And this is a pretty good one. Kelly, you may not have heard me, but how long did it take you and Jerry to go from start to finish on the reoccupation of that space, starting from the construction start date of the renovations?
It was just under 9 months.
Under 9 months.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Which is really fast.
Yeah, granted, but I mean, so somewhere between 9 months and a year, a landlord could look to the opportunity to suddenly have $1 million in additional cash flow out of that amount of space. And, that's another significant milestone for them in their journey towards revitalizing their center and adding considerable income
Yep.
to replace what's missing.
Yeah.
No, the key was they did not want to split the space.
Yeah.
That was that was what drove when our guys decided they can work with the whole space, that's when we were able to get into it.
Well, you know,
Yes.
Jerry, that speaks to yours and Kelly's expertise in being able to help the incoming tenant gain confidence in being able to do that. And that confidence came from the fact that you told them quite self-assuredly, I can fill the remainder of that space or see to it that it is done. So, you know, those two combinations of attitudes, you know, you were the bridge and you made it happen. And what a wonderful revitalization of that portion of the center. I think, you know, I'd like to skip on to how we might recommend the addition of elements that would be useful as far as bringing about revitalization. And, you know, I can speak a little bit to this in the form of the mixed use classical add-ons, and that would be multifamily residential rentals. They're quite popular today. And obviously they bring with them not only considerable added revenue, but they also form a mini market for the shopping center and its tenancy. And so I think that we basically have that to consider. And I think the other part is that we also want to acknowledge that there are opportunities beyond that are synergistic. So, for example, we have the opportunity to bring in other elements, and I think the key point is that the kind of elements I'm talking about include returns that are unseen in shopping center business these days.
Yeah.
For example, if you were to add a seniors continuum of care set of residential buildings running from independent living all the way through to assisted living to even dementia care, what you end up having, of course, is you've got that added market, but the rate of return on those projects today is in the 30 to 40% range. That's the IRR. So, you know, all of a sudden, you know, where you've got a very modest return or none at all on account of vacancies in a retail center, you can look forward to the evolution of this kind of element. And I would say that that's going to take you a minimum of 2 years to go through the approvals that are required from the, you know, jurisdictional authorities, and of course the build out. So let's say 2 to 3 years. But the nice thing is that we've described a progression of different opportunities, and we haven't exhausted the discussion. You know, another choice, and I'll ask Raman to weigh in on this, would be a serviced hotel, serviced apartments and hotel. Raman, do you want to comment about that, please?
Yeah, I think the serviced apartments are going to be very, very important when you talk about the mixed-use development. You see, with the millennials and, you know, generally what's happening with the employment, people are not buying houses anymore. And they are, you know, they're willing to travel, go to other states for when they get a right job. And, you know, they don't want to have too much baggage with them, furniture and things like that. So, you know, they would go and rent a serviced apartment, which has the other amenities that are nearby, because they don't want to drive too far, and, you know, because a lot of time they are working from home as well, but then, you know, they want to be close. They do have to go into the office for certain things. So I think service apartment is going to be really, really beneficial for any mixed-use development to have. When it comes to hotels, again, you know, hotels will have to have something in addition to, you know, just, it's not just about business anymore. You know, earlier it used to be that you have an office complex and, you know, you have a hotel. The hotels will do well if you're next to a hospital, or you are, you know, you have something extra that you can give. So in terms of entertainment or, you know, sports arenas and things like that. That's where the hotels will be able to.
Although I will add that, you know, if you associate a hotel, particularly, let's say, the short and medium term variety that we're talking about,
Mhm.
next to a seniors, you know, community, what you have is the effect of a lot of family coming to visit. There's not a place for
That's
them to
what I meant when I said the hospitals or you know,
Yeah,
senior.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
So I'm saying that if even if you don't have a hospital nearby, the
mhm.
action of bringing in the seniors community component into a retail development, you know, generates business for a hotel and justifies more its
Again,
location.
you know, uh, that can be taken care of by the service apartments as well,
Yeah,
because a lot
yeah,
of these families do want to have access to a kitchen.
yeah.
Service apartments would have these kitchens.
Hmm.
So I think their service apartments next to a senior community would be more beneficial.
Sure. So, you know, there's a synergy that goes along with, which is the whole point behind mixed use developments, of course. And I think it's wise to say at this point, almost anybody who listening to us talk can
Mm.
immediately see the logic and the appeal of doing these things.
And
But
I want to add something more, Phil. Sorry to
yeah,
stop
go
you.
ahead.
You see, currently, if there are any residential projects that are going on under development or under construction, and even in a mixed-use development, and you want to change part of it to a service apartment, it's much easier to do that than to do that with a hotel or any other
Uh,
form of this thing.
that's an interesting aspect of it as well. Thank you for that. I think that you know the importance of these elements, as they say, most people can grasp immediately why they would be beneficial and can imagine why it's necessary to make them work harmoniously with one another. But there's many a slip twixt lip and cup. And what that really means in this case is that the over specialization of developers who have, let's say, gone to do strictly retail and, you know, some of the attended uses or strictly multifamily actually limits their confidence, not their capability, but their confidence in being able to successfully knit these together. And you know, I tend to boil it down to a simple concept of making sure that the doors are in the right places, so that you don't end up with you know, with mismatches. And I've, God knows, I've seen a number of those where they don't work because they haven't figured out how people actually behave. What we do is, you know, we engage with specialists ourselves as well as external ones who truly understand customer behavior, and so we understand how to knit these together. And even more sophisticated part of it is from a research standpoint. Before you even get underway, we have colleagues such as David Allison of Value Graphics, who really lend a very interesting dimension to how you address your audience. For example, their forte is to measure people's um, similarities by the values they share. So in other words, they'll assess a market and they'll say, you know, a significant component of this market contains people who value the following things. And you go, well, that's interesting. And irrespective of age or you know, demographic information, gender, income, that is a driving force in their choices to be parts of a development. I mean, it sounds obvious, but until you get somebody like David Allison, who's collected well over 500,000 worldwide, very complex surveys that helps them have insights into local markets, they end up, you know, it's a nice theory, but in his case, it works. And so what that allows a developer to do is say, you know, I've run this shopping center successfully for a number of years. It's declined for any number of reasons. I need to know what it is that's caused the decline. I'd like to determine who's out there to whom I should make an appeal. They find that out through David Allison's study. Then they message out to that group and say, you know what? We have XYZ things that you would like to take advantage of here. And we have an offering where you can actually move into an apartment in our development as well. Would you like to live here? And so that research leads to making better choices as to how you shape what this mixed-use project looks like. So, it's not enough to have these nice uses. You've got to find out which ones are of greatest appeal to people. So,
Yeah.
sorry, I'll let you talk now, Raman, but,
Well, if you remember on Yas Island, we had such a huge project, and we were creating something out of nothing. And how do you define who's going to come? And sometimes people had this idea that you build and they will come. But we knew as a core team that we needed to provide the right mix of in terms of entertainment, and you had the racetrack there, you had the golf course there, you had theme parks over there, and so we had to know what works and what will not work. Mm-hmm. So we did all those feasibility studies before we went into any kind of master planning.
Absolutely.
Those feasibilities did provide, and one of the examples I'll give you, if you remember, that we were building all these glass and shard, but when the focus groups were done at the Abu Dhabi airport, and one of the biggest things that came out of those focus groups was that the tourists who were coming to UAE wanted to see 1001 Arabian Nights. They had seen the glass and shard everywhere. They wanted to see something authentic. So that was an answer. And you know why in Dubai, if you look up the Medina Jumeirah and Medina Al Qasr, that whole Jumeirah strip is a proof that when you listen to people and you come up with these resorts that look like really from the 1001 Arabian Nights, they do well, and they have returned their return many times over.
Well, that you're talking about Al Qasr, for example, it's a hotel that Raman is referencing, and when you're greeted, when you drive up, there's twice life-size herd of wild stallions in gold that are statues that greet you as you drive up the driveway. So the point he's making is well taken. And then everything around how they've branded the hotel, how they've decorated and so on, all responds to that theme that you're talking about. And so it really lends an extra dimension of appreciation by the customer.
You see, when it comes to hospitality and this thing, earlier we used to say, what is your USP? What's your unique selling point? But that has now changed to what is your unique selling experience. Everything is about experience. Mm-hmm. Because people through Google, through virtual reality, they can do so many things. And so the real experiences is what becoming rare, and more people want to experience things. So if any project that can provide besides basic use can provide an experience, will do well.
My experience in China sort of follows on that. I was involved in shopping centers where we were able to really exemplify the then current trends in Chinese culture and depict them graphically on large jumbotron screens. And so the effect was, as people progressively walked to and then into the shopping center, they would be greeted with imagery that made them know where they are, a sense of place. And so as they would walk towards the main entrance on a very large screen above the main entrance, there would be preceding them a couple holding hands on a beach and walking forward. And in China, love is a big business, and it generates a lot of emotional appeal. It does everywhere, but in this case, it's especially so. And as a result, you give people that experience that they can be no other place than where they are, and that associates with the brand and of course the popularity of the retailers within it. So there are so many ways of accentuating that experience that are really important. I learned a lot from my appreciation of what the theme park people did just to emphasize that, right? Working with the creators of Ferrari World and Warner Brothers was pretty eye-opening.
Well, knowing what your clientele wants, that from whether it's a restaurant or whether it's a hotel. To give you an example, one time somebody asked me to develop a restaurant concept, and just because they had been to, I won't name the restaurant, an Italian restaurant in London, and they wanted to basically bring that in Abu Dhabi where we were. And, I had to reason with them that there were 19 other Italian restaurants. And just because that person liked that food and wanted to bring, that doesn't mean that that restaurant is going to work.
Yeah.
And I had to present the facts that there are 19 restaurants, and I had to tell them what are the cuisines that are missing in the market and that have the potential to go up. And a lot of people, the owners don't have that foresight. And that's where the people like ourselves come in and have to educate them and say that, how they can make money besides having their dreams taken care of.
Well, that caters to a favorite, slogan. I've got a few, that what we want to do is help people earn an unfair share of the market. And the way to do that is to make sure that you're appealing to the client, the customer, in ways that the competition is not. So only through research, as you're describing, Raman, are you able then to draw the right conclusions as to who the players should be, what are the uses, et cetera. So that's very very vital. We also have other, and I'd like to ask Nick Malagisi to weigh in here. We do have other opportunities above and beyond food and beverage and hospitality, but that knit together with them. And I'd like Nick, would you talk a little bit about adding the kind of development we see Diamond, for example, in Ottawa, where they have a very sophisticated looking building that probably makes the shopping center have to work overtime to catch up to its appearance, but that they fit together in supporting, let's say, rental multifamily, because that is a popular choice, right? Multifamily, tenants want to have extra storage nearby. You want to talk a bit about that, Nick?
Thank you, Phil. The self-storage is one opportunity that should be considered in any new mixed-use development. But I'm really going to defer to you folks for the elite tenant mix. I can tell you that what it can do for a mixed-use development, but then everybody else has to decide whether or not that is the best use of the space. It's like taking a raw piece of land, 20 acres, and what do you want to do with it? What's the highest and best use? You may be a shopping center developer or an apartment developer, but if the piece of land is really conducive for something else, then are you forcing onto the land a use that may not necessarily work out in the long run? And I think you folks have a great advantage with some of these distressed centers by seeing what did not work.
That's a good point.
Then making recommendations for redoing the Unimix. Sure.
Well, as you point out, there is a rationale between the, of course, the site and its location within the market, first and foremost. I mean, it's got to be right for whatever use that we're considering. And then secondly, the idea of knitting together in a harmonious group is the other critical decision point. So what I'm saying is that it may not suit all developments, but it is another one of the elements that can be added. And it is one, as you pointed out to me some time ago when we were doing an evaluation of a property, that it might take a cycle of 2 to 3 years before that project is built and accepted within the market. But when the time comes, and I base this on the numbers I've seen you produce, when the time comes, the kind of rate of return is very significant. It's more in the range of the 30 to 40% I was talking about earlier. And each project has its own idiosyncrasies. But once again, what we're talking about doing is reinventing a retail center into something that works again and will continue to work down the road. In other words, these different streams of income are harmonious, but they're not specifically dependent on one another. So you end up with the opportunity for the shopping center to survive turmoil, such as we're going through now. And so, that versatility is very important.
Well, you bring up a good point just a second ago about depending on each other, because self-storage is really not beneficial directly to other types of retailers. It's beneficial to the end user, okay? But to the landlord or to the developer, it will be a very stable form of income that maybe the others aren't able to provide him.
Sure, and remember, we're talking from the developer's perspective here. At the end of the day, what the developer is trying to do is diversify his or her income source, and to basically provide for monies coming in that don't depend on, let's say, the popularity of multifamily residential at any given moment. So, it's that versatility that is really important, I think, in what we're talking about as an appeal to the landlord. I think that the other aspect that we want to emphasize is that one solution doesn't fit all. And, so what we're talking about is through the kind of research conducted by people such as Kelly, such as Raman, Jerry, of course, Nick and our other team members, we end up with the opportunity to give a real world perspective of the suitability of that element. And we might go through a ranking. There might be 6 elements on the table, but room only for 3. And so we help the owner to make a choice amongst them as to which is the better one to fit together and how they're going to fit together. And this really sort of emphasizes the opportunity for each owner to be able to use our services to be able to come up with that right solution, because one size does not fit all, number one. Number two, we've done this before, as you can tell. And, we have many projects under our belt where we've been able to successfully achieve, the knitting together of these elements in a harmonious whole. And, somebody who is wanting to do it, but concerned that they might make a mistake, can rely upon us as professionals to help them do it. I have another favorite slogan. I've got a little banner that says, if you think a professional is expensive, wait until you see what an amateur will charge you.
That's a funny one.
If you remember, Phil, when we were developing the Ferrari theme park, and all the theme park specialists, but when it came to food and beverage, they were lost, and I had to come in and basically sort a lot of the problems they had.
Yes.
So it makes a sense for a group like us, where we have our specialities, but we know how our specialities fit in with the other members of the team.
Sure.
It costs a lot more to repair than it does.
Absolutely.
Wise up front.
You got that right. I have a comment, Phil.
Yeah, please, Kelly, go ahead.
So, based on what Nick was saying, Nick Malagisi, our self-storage expert, because you were talking about the financial benefits, Phil, and when we can expect these financial benefits of, some landlords are in deep doo-doo. I mean, they're what feels like minutes away. It might be 4 months or a year, or might be even sooner, away from losing control of their asset to the mortgage company. So the opportunity, and Nick is teaching me about this, is now the storage facility needs to own its piece of property, and if the asset owner is able to successfully sever, or maybe there are some natural pieces that are all severable, are already ready to go, and you can sever them, there's immediate cash if you're able to sell you know, 2 acres.
Yeah.
Nick, I think you mentioned it, 2 acres is sort of the minimum, potentially.
Again, depending on how urban, it could be an acre and a half.
Wow. Okay. So in a big, let's say, well-developed urban shopping center, this,
Vertical building.
okay, that's you know, hurting, but it's still well positioned within the marketplace. You know, that's immediate, relatively immediate cash once they go through, if you know, all the other paperwork associated with selling a piece.
Sure.
But there's cash. There's a piece of revenue, and there's one other thing I wanted to bring up for immediate revenue. Is when we did the Nation's Fresh Foods, when we brought the grocery store in to that development, it had been sitting without an anchor store for, what would you say, Jer, close to 3 years?
But the Target?
The Target.
No, it wasn't that long.
No? 24
They were-
months?
They weren't even open 9 months. That's what made it so attractive, because the unit was brand new.
Yeah. Yeah.
What my point is that as those of us from the shopping center industry, we've negotiated these leases, we know that those big national tenants have clauses that say, in the event that your anchor store heads wherever, is gone bye-bye, or it goes dark for whatever reason, guess what? We're not paying rent. And so a whole bunch of these retailers were on, you know, whatever their deal was, either no rent or just minimum rent or just additional rent or a percentage of sales, something way less than what they had originally contracted to
Let
pay.
me ask you, was that covered under the force majeure? Because COVID-19 is an act of...
It's called co-tenancy. That's the phenomenon that Kelly is talking about. It's a specific co-tenancy arrangement that says if so-and-so leaves, I get to leave also, or I get to reduce my income. The force majeure clause that you're talking about is something more drastic still. That is, if the tenant leaves, this happens to be to apply to a much bigger group of tenants, because it's just the bigger guys who negotiate these co-tenancy agreements. So it's a much bigger body of tenants who could exercise the force majeure clause and lead to a greater exodus still. But I'd like to add one more thing to what you're saying, Kelly, and that is, we all know that the lenders for these properties honestly don't want to operate them. They really don't have that expertise in-house, generally speaking. So they'll try to do whatever they can to avoid that. But at the same time, their board of directors is going to tell their executives, yeah, but there's got to be a pathway to success here. So any developer who might imagine that he's going to be challenged, in meeting his obligations with his mortgage lender over some period of time, if they come to that mortgage lender and say, you know what, I've got a team of people who really know what they're doing, and here's the specific plan of action that we propose to introduce here to resolve the issue and to not only bring it back to good health and restore the solidity of your loan, but also make it even better and longer lasting. So, you know, the audience here is not just the owner of the property, but also the lender behind them. And so that lender will not only give a vote of confidence to the owner, but probably provide additional funds, because some of the adjustments that are made, for example, to include the Nation's store, required perhaps some kind of tenant allowance from the landlord. And now I'm not saying that landlord needed money, but you know, you would imagine a lender could see their way clear to providing that. So anyway, to make a long story short, I think that there's a lot to mixed-use developments. And thank you very much today for Kelly, your insightful comments, and you too, Jerry, on the food and beverage. Thank you very much for that, and also on the movement towards redevelopment of big space. And Raman, thank you very much for you lending your considerable expertise and observations on how to include hospitality and even entertainment, as you were talking about, in the mixed-use development, so as to help the landlord to revitalize and to succeed. So thank you, everyone. I really appreciate your participation today, and I look forward to talking with you again in the near future. Thanks
Thank
again.
you.
I'll send my details to everybody once I have my contact details.
Thank you very much.